Okay, let's go.
He wants to jump
1,000 cars. Sir, you have 1,000 cars.
I don't think I'd attempt to try this stunt.
Or we owe this horsepower to Uncle Sam.
Too many cars.
Car. Roses would be.
Like I put my beer belly on it.
If you can't immediately tell somebody how many cars you have,
You'll really give those uppity yuppies something to think about.
Stay on the bar. Don't go off the bar with your Bronco.
1980 Volvo horns, which are like,
Yeah.
I want a man's coolant.
and he's like, "Oh, I thought it'd be small. It's for a small car." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it's still an automatic transmission. They're never going to be light."
It's definitely going to have to crash.
Starting off with Brad buying another car.
That's the West. Internets.
Is this a Nigerian oil print?
I also wish you drove a tan Camry.
Anyways,
Anyway,
that's a
horrible,
very
horrible podcast content.
very
Talking about a picture.
inside joke.
It loves to be driven hard.
There it is.
I'm still ready.
Welcome to Auto Off Topic. How goes it, Brad?
It's going pretty well. Car stuff's happened. Car stuff's happening. We have some things to talk about, and that's about the story there. What's going on in your side of the country?
Well, it's been extremely cold. So I haven't done much to cars at all because it's been like 0 degrees for like weeks.
I see
lots
there's
of
going
snow.
to be more snow and more negative wind chill this weekend, so doesn't
Yeah.
sound like it's getting any better.
Not barely any snow, but like negative 20, 25 with the wind chill. Even,
I guess I was seeing like 5 to 8 inches, which doesn't seem
Oh.
like much snow when your last storm was like 24. So
yeah, but like even like too cold to go skiing. Like I don't have gear that's good enough for that cold.
one thing you love about winter, you can't even do it.
Yeah.
It's what it is. We all have our negatives and positives to where we live, right? So
Yeah. And plus I was waiting on stuff for the Volvo. I did get the little soft mounts because I'm going to pull the carbs off because the chokes are stuck in there. But it's also like not high on the priority list because it's still cold out. And to run it and tune it, we'd have to have the garage doors open, which would not be comfortable. And plus, kind of doesn't make sense to tune it when it's 30 degrees outside and you're only ever going to drive it when it's, 50 or above. So,
yeah, not only the temperature, but the humidity there in the summer is so much different too, and that will affect the tune too.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going to wait till it
definitely
warms up
worth
a little
waiting.
bit. And then I'll take the carbs off and hopefully pop those chokes out. And we'll get it running again. At least I know it runs. That's all that matters. It's even too cold for me
everything
to
now
want to
is-
go over. Sorry, it's even too cold for me to want to go over and work on the wiring on the inside. Because it's like,
Yeah.
you just got to run the heat. It just feels like you're wasting energy at that point.
And even with the heat in the garage, it's still a big cold building, right?
Yeah.
So if it was heated all the time, it wouldn't be as big of a deal because it wouldn't be starting from negative temperatures. It would be starting from its regular mid-level heat temperature. So speaking of which, I've gotten one quote so far, and I have 2 more companies coming tomorrow to give me quotes on air conditioning in my garage, so that mid-summer we won't have to have the same conversation the opposite way around, where I can't do anything because it's 110 degrees outside. So that is the first quote was pretty reasonable. So if the second 2 quotes are the same or less, I'll probably have air conditioning in the next, I don't know, month and a half in the garage. So it'll be
is
all set for
there-
this upcoming summer.
Is there provisions to eventually like just run it off solar? So it's just like solar air conditioning all day?
So I was digging into some of that process. Right now, we're not going to do that. Basically, because you can run. Okay, let me back that up. I could put solar panels on the roof and run any standard AC system off of the solar system on the roof. but the cost of the solar is so much higher than what the projected cost of running mini split is that it would be years before I saw a benefit from that. Especially if we run the air conditioning in the garage the same way we run it in the house. Not to dig too deep into the way the grid works here, but we're on APS, which is our power company here, and they have a time of use program where in the morning and like through the early afternoon, the cost per kilowatt hour use is very low. And then during peak, on peak, which is, it changes every year a little bit. I think right now it's between the hours of 3 and 7 or 4 and 7. It costs a lot more to run your electricity then. So what we do here is everything is set on a smart timer, which we'll also do in the garage, obviously. And in the morning, we super cool the house so that it gets down to, a lower temperature. And then everything in the house is also that temperature. And then when the on-demand higher cost happens at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, the AC shuts off and stays off until 7. And then at 7:01, 7:02, whatever, the AC kicks back on. The house has gone up to about 80 degrees, which is livable when it's 110 outside. And then it cools back down after that. So it goes back to a comfortable, 70 in the house, or 72, I think we have it at during the summertime, in the main house after 7. So you only have that between 3 o'clock and 7 o'clock where you're not running air conditioning. But since you put it to like 60 in the morning, it pre-cools everything. And, we have tile floors and all the furniture and everything holds the cool air. And then at the end of the day, it kicks back on again. So it doesn't cost much to run it that way. So we're going to do the same thing in the garage. And the theory being that, the cars in the garage, the tools in the garage, the walls in the garage, if everything in there is at 60 degrees and then it's off for 3 or 4 hours and it goes up to 80 or so inside the garage, no big deal. Then you go back out there at night and it's 70 something degrees in the garage and you're totally cool. So that's the plan. Hopefully that works. The beauty of that whole system is we can add solar later if it doesn't work out that way and solar winds up being more cost effective. But as a general rule, because we do it that way and because our house is all modern insulation, and when I did the garage, we did all full R30 in the garage as well. So it's literally the same insulation you put in the house. And it's all behind drywall, and we paid extra for like the insulated doors, and we have good, insulated windows, and everything is all done up like it was going to be for a house so that we'd have the same scenario in the garage. So the hope is it doesn't cost us a ton extra to run it. And really, it's only 3 or 4 months out of the year where it's going to run anyway. So that's part of the reason that whole like cost benefit of solar is not worth it at this time, I don't think. So we'll see what happens. If we put the AC in and it winds up costing us $400 or $500 a month, then we'll reevaluate the situation. But I can't imagine it doing that, and that's what the solar's setup would cost. A few $100s a month every month, not just during the hot months to pay it off. So probably not worth it, but we'll see. We'll see. But first step is getting it in there, and like I said, we had one quote that we were pretty happy with. And then we have 2 more companies coming out tomorrow to give 2 more quotes just to make sure we have a good range and we're not going to get surprised. And, this first guy's not super cheap, and then we question why, figure they're all going to be in the same general range. But the thought process is to do a single 2-ton, I forget how many BTUs that is, mini split. So initially we were talking about doing 2 1-ton units, but I guess it's more efficient to run the 1 2-ton unit. So for the amount of square footage we have, it shouldn't be a problem. And then our ceiling height isn't going to be a huge issue because what rises is heat, not cool. So hopefully the hot air stays up in the, big open ceiling, and the cool air stays down below. So Not sure exactly how it goes yet, but we'll see. We'll see where we're at. But hopefully, within the next month and a half or so, we'll have cool air in the garage. We decided that's more important to put that in first than lifts because we can use the garage without lifts. We can't use the garage without AC in midsummer. So see where it goes. But that's the exciting part right now.
That's cool.
Literally.
Yeah, I wish I was fancy and had AC in my garage.
I mean, I'm not fancy and don't have AC in my garage either. I'm talking about putting it in, so we'll come back to that when we get there. But you don't, yeah, we'll see.
But so the last time you were working on the Mercure and the Speedo cable
Yeah.
was not fitting, but I don't think I heard the resolution to that.
So it's all back together. So we've been off for a couple of weeks just for various reasons. One of those reasons is that my parents were here for a while. My mom and dad flew out, I don't know, a couple Fridays ago. My mom stayed for a long weekend and then went home. But then my dad was staying through the rest of the week to go do all the Car Week stuff. Arizona Car Week is what they call the week now, I guess officially, around the Barrett-Jackson winter auction in Scottsdale. So they've kind of built all this other stuff happening around it. There's, a couple other auction houses. There's a bunch of car shows. There's a bunch of events. So my dad was here for the week. I took the week off so I could go do a bunch of the car stuff with him around town. But I wanted to make sure the Mercure was done so that I could go to the Car Week events with the, for sale stickers in the glass to try to promote the car as an actual for sale thing. Unfortunately, we didn't go to enough events, I don't think, where the car was seen. A lot of the events at Car Week are kind of like an invite kind of situation. You need to have the invite to be parked in the main parking area, but that's okay. It is what it is. Still have the car out there with the phone number on it. My phone hasn't rung, but that doesn't mean it's not going to, right? So I wanted to have it done. So I finished it, I think, a night or two before he got here. Or maybe I finished it when he was here. Either way, I think he was here when I was finishing it. And I was able to crimp the end on the cable. I think I discussed that it had one end was a square cable, the other end is a round cable, and then you cut it to length and you crimp on this little extension with a square peg to fit into the factory style speedometer gears in both the cluster and the transmission. So I managed to get that all crimped together. Basically, I just needed to put some serious force on it. And that's what I did. I got it crimped down the best I could. It seemed to be solid. I put it in a vise, and then I put the little die that it came with in the vise, and I cranked it as hard as I could, and I couldn't get it to crimp because the die would bottom out on itself. So I bent the die so that the left and right side of the crimping portion of the die wouldn't bottom out. They would cross over each other. And then I went so far as to take the jack handle off of the jack and put it on the handle for the vise so I can get more leverage because I couldn't get enough leverage to crimp it with my bare hands. And once I had sufficiently bent the handle to the vise, I figured I had enough crimping force on the end. So took it off. Everything seemed to stay together. I put a little dab of JB Weld inside of it for good measure. I don't know that I needed it, but I figured it wouldn't hurt. So put that in there. Everything seems to stay together. Put it in the car. Got the whole thing ready to go in the car. Spun the cable and it wouldn't turn the speedometer, and I was very frustrated. But then I realized that when I had pushed the cluster back into the dashboard, it took more force than I thought it would take. And it turned out that I had actually jammed the cable between the hole in the firewall and the cluster, and it hadn't come all the way straight out, so it was actually bent inside the dashboard. So it's preventing it from spinning. So once I relieved that pressure, took everything apart again, which let me tell you, incredibly frustrating and hard because every piece of plastic on the interior of a 1989 Mercor is, I couldn't even tell you what it's made out of. It's like paper mache at this point. It's all so thin and brittle just from years and years and years of UV exposure and heat cycling and use. So thankfully, I was able to get everything together without breaking too much stuff. A couple of tabs need a little love to go back together properly, but that's just old car life, I think, unfortunately. Got all back together, spun it back up again before I fed it down through the car and back under the transmission. Everything seemed to work. Plugged it in the transmission. At that point, you're just pretty much, it's between you and luck and hope at that point because there's no more way to test it. So you got to button everything back up, put the car back on the ground, take it for a test drive, and lo and behold, it showed how fast I was going. So I guess that's a win for that one. The tachometer reads low, but at least the speedometer reads accurate. And I checked it with my GPS on my phone, and it's within 3 miles an hour. So I think that's probably as accurate as it probably ever was. I'm sure they're not calibrated to GPS when they're new. So my guess is it's never been 100% accurate. Or maybe somebody changed it at some point when they ran a different size wheel and tire. Who knows? But it's got factory size wheels and tires, and everything's factory, and it works, and it shows more or less exactly how fast I'm going, which is all I care about. So, and it reads 3 miles an hour faster, which is good because you're not going to go speeding because it's, when it says you're doing 50, you're doing 47. So there you go. Keep me honest. Keep me honest out there in the streets. So I drove the car all week, went to a ton of events with it. Car ran spectacular. Like 100% bulletproof, never skipped a beat. Drove well, shifted well. Everything just worked. Radio worked, Bluetooth worked, power windows worked, all the lights worked. The car just drove nicely. And like I said, I took it all over town. I probably did 300 or 400 miles over the week without incident. So pretty safe to say that's pretty well sorted at this point. The only thing keeping me from listing it online is I have to bring it to the exhaust shop. This is one broken exhaust hanger that needs to be welded up. So as soon as that is done, as soon as I have a chance to do that, it will officially be for sale with like brand new pictures taken somewhere and a for sale post, and shoot me an offer. I'll probably say yes, as long as it's not an insulting offer, or wait a little bit and maybe it'll go on an auction site somewhere. That's not what I want to do. I'd rather just get rid of it, but I have a standing offer from one of the auction sites to list it, so we'll see what happens. But I think that's exciting time because it's closer to being perfect and done than it's ever been in my possession. So I need to now remember that I'm selling it and not be like, oh, this car runs great, I'm just going to keep it now. That's what I'm trying not to do because I need that money for a somewhat, I won't call it a secret because a few people know, but it's not public yet, purchase. And I also need that money to help finish the 84 Starion because I need that done by May. So everything's got to happen quickly. So we'll see what happens. But I am excited. It does drive really nicely. And it'll be a good car for somebody now that's 100% sorted. So, if you ever wanted a Mercor, this is the one to buy.
Cool.
I think it's 88,000 miles or 87,000 miles.
Let's go take some nice pictures of it.
I will take some nice pictures of it. That's my plan. I have some great shots of it already, but I want some fresh shots so everybody knows exactly how it looks right now. Because a lot of my pictures of it are with the other wheels and stuff. So, but I'll get it out. We'll do a golden hour photo shoot probably sometime this weekend, maybe Saturday, maybe Sunday. We'll see. Nope, not Sunday because it's Super Bowl. Gotta watch
Yeah.
our Patriots.
Go Pats.
Go Pats. Which also means it's 1 week from Daytona.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's the big project car update. I've talked about it a million times, but I'm holding myself accountable. And I have the 944 in the garage. All the timing belt stuff is there with it. And that, fingers crossed, should be done before the game this weekend. So that will also possibly be listed for sale. We'll see. Not 100% sure what's happening with that yet, but I think that it might be that fire sale time that I've been teasing for like, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. How many years was it? 2.5 years?
I think so.
So, because this May will be 4 years with that car. So I said I was going to keep for 2 or 3, and I'm almost at 4. So time to move on. I have many other projects that require money, time, and space. So blasting through everything. Oh, one more big one. Stupid Starion.
Okay.
The fuel tank.
Oh, right.
I think I have updated everybody twice. The first time I said there was a hole in it.
Yep.
Second time I said, false alarm, there's no hole in it. Well, third time, we're back to there's a hole in it.
Okay.
And I'm not sure where. And
What a
it's
roller
incredibly
coaster.
frustrating. Such a roller coaster. So the tank looks very clean on the outside. There's no rust anywhere at all. It had those 2 spots that looked like holes when it was installed in the car. And then I took it out of the car and we realized that it was just 2 square marks where the undercoating was failing because there was fuel leaking down from it. And it looked like the fuel was just expanding because the tank was full and going up past the hardened seals that were in the sending unit. So I bought some cleaning solution because the inside of the tank sat for a long time with fuel in it, and it's not rusty, but it's gunky, and it needs to be cleaned up. I wouldn't want to put gas in it and drive it because then all that gas would wind up in the filters, and it'd be all that gunk. Would wind up in the filters, and it'd be a mess. So I bought this solution that you use for cleaning a tank, and started doing the whole thing. And realized that there's no way I was going to get it done in the driveway with and as clean as I wanted to get it. So I was like, you know what, forget it. I'm going to bring it to the radiator shop and I'm going to have them do it right. Like I had them do the Cressida tank, I don't know, 5 years ago, 4 years ago, whatever it was. So I said, but before I do that, let me fill it with the solution in it. I'll fill it all the way, like I'm filling it with gas, and see what happens. Because I want to make sure there is 100% not a hole in this tank somewhere. So I filled it up. Everything seemed great. I put it on top of a 5-gallon bucket in the middle of an empty bay in the garage, and I walked away. I went in the garage the next day, and the entire floor was covered in a brown liquid of cleaning solution and water. So it all leaked out of the tank somewhere. Do I know where? I don't know where. There is no obvious leak point. The entire bottom of the tank is wet from it just running down and seeping around everything. I still can't find a hole. All of the things I've unbolted from the tank are on the top above the water line, so there's no reason for it to have been leaking out of any of those. Like all of the holes and all the fittings and the hoses, nothing on the side of the tank is opened. Save for the filler neck, but I had it below that level. So there's a heat shield that goes around the back side of the tank, I guess the front side of the tank, because it goes against towards the front of the car. That goes against where the exhaust is in the car. And it's welded, like spot welded, to the seam of the tank. The tank looks like it's obviously 2 pieces that were, welded across the middle. an upper and a lower, and then the heat shield is spot welded into that. So I was looking at it like, how do I figure this out? I could drill out the spot welds that are for the heat shield. I was like, but I also don't know how compromised that might make the tank. But whatever, not a big deal. I can have the tank re-welded later. But what if it's not back there and something dumb is happening and I can't figure out what's happening? So I was chatting with a friend, blast from the past. Well, you probably haven't even thought of in a long time, Andrew, but I've been talking to a bunch lately. Magellan, Mage.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, why don't you use a smoke machine? And I was like, that is an excellent idea. So I went on the internet and I was like, how cheap are smoke machines now? Because I feel like it's one of those things that the tool's been out for quite some time and it must be inexpensive now. And it turns out I was quite correct.
Yeah. Well, probably talked about it. I bought a cheap one probably 4 or 5 years ago, and it was like a modified paint can with like bare wire in it to like make a hot coil. It was very sketchy, and I was like, nope, and I sent it back. So I
So
think
these
the
are not
one
that
you-
anymore.
yeah, it seems like they're actually a professional tool now that you can get cheap.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. They are sub $60. And it's a very professional tool. It's not a homemade garage with an empty paint can and a electrical coil at the bottom of it. And it uses like basically mineral spirits to make smoke. So I bought one of those. I have not done the process yet. That will be one of this weekend's projects that just came in this week. So I bought one of those smoke machines. I'm going to cap off all the holes that I know are holes and run the smoke machine and see where the smoke comes out, because that should hopefully tell me what's working and what's not working, right? So I guess we'll have an update next week on whether I still need to find a new tank or not. Because the problem with a tank is, A, they're awkward to ship. They fit in a box, so that's good. But you never know what you're going to get. And I might wind up with another tank with a hole in it. Because they're all, at this point, the last car was made in 89. Thankfully, it's the same tank from 83 to 89. But the last tank was made in 89, and that's 37 years ago. So I don't want to put a 37-year-old tank in a car or buy a 37-year-old tank and have to fix it when I have one here that's mostly good. And if it's a small pinhole somewhere, I can fix it. Or if I'm a complete and total idiot and the fuel is just leaking out of somewhere that I'm missing, I will know. So that's the process with that. As far as any other projects, I have not done anything else, but that's actually a pretty good rundown of what's going on. And we'll update Naomi's project, the 68 Mustang. She's actually currently in the backyard finishing up her seam sealer job. She did a ton of seam sealing work she ripped off all the old seam sealer that was compromised, re-primed all the areas, and is now redoing all the seam sealer from the firewall forward in the car. So that also looks really good. And the next step for that, once she's done seam sealing, which should be done this weekend, is paint and install suspension. So that project is also moving right along. So there's a lot of stuff happening here right now. All's pretty well. But that's it for project cars. I guess it's going to be the all Brad show today, apparently, because it's wintertime out there. Car Week, Arizona Car Week.
Yeah.
What's you want to hear about that?
Yeah. What? Anything cool?
Arizona Car Week is not Monterey Car Week by any means,
Okay.
but
Understand.
it's on the up. They're trying to make it more and more legit. I think this is the first year they've officially been like, oh, this is Car Week. Like, people kind of called it Car Week, but this is the first time where it's like, oh, this is Car Week. We're going to do special events on Car Week. So trying to bring that same Monterey kind of crowd, for better or for worse, that happens there. Now, just like anything else, there's going to be events you want to go to and events you have absolutely zero interest in going to, and events that you want to just see and not really partake in. So we kind of did a bunch of that stuff. What's the first car week thing we did? Oh boy. Car week really kicked off on, I think, Wednesday. I get all my days wrong, but that's okay. So I think Wednesday was the first real big day. And we went to the open house at Italian Design and Racing, who I've talked about on here a bunch. That's my friend Michael Carpenter's shop, where they do a bunch of vintage Ferrari restorations and race cars and other Italian car maintenance. They are the auto off topic of Ferrari people. They're not big money, swing the money around, pretend to be rich. I have more money than you crowd. They're the genuine enthusiasts who happen to be into Ferraris and work on Ferraris. So that's why we like them. And they're good people on top of it. So they had a big open house. I was invited to bring the Mercor there with the for sale sign on it. So that was nice. Got some good exposure there of the car. Had it parked right in front of their shop. So that was very cool. They had all their typical race cars on display. All of their memorabilia that they sell was on display and all priced out. Finger foods and drinks and whatnot. And that was a good opening to the car week events because it was pretty low key. It's Michael and everybody who's pretty awesome over there. So that was a good time. That might have actually been Thursday. I'm going to get all my days screwed up. Same day as that, in the evening, was the official opening of the art exhibit for Car Week. And that was kind of neat. Something outside of my norm for a car show. There wasn't much of an actual car show. That's one of those events I was talking about where you had to be invited to be inside. So my car was parked in the parking lot, so I did not get the exposure at that one, but that's okay. It was at the warehouse in Mesa. It's the same place we started my rally this past October. They had 5 or 6 different artists that painted cars, which is cool. Not painted cars, but painted paintings of cars, I guess, to explain it. And they were all very different stylistically. It was like walking around an art museum, but just with paintings of cars. So that was really cool. The particular opening night I was able to go to as a guest of Michael's from IDR. I was able to get me some tickets because it was a little bit out of my price range, but it was cool to go and not have to pay. Big shout out to Michael for that one. They had it catered, people walking around at the beginning of a wedding. They walk around with appetizers. It was that kind of food walking around. There was a drink bar around the car art. There were some significant cars parked in there as well. There was a early 70s recreation of a 250 GTO short wheelbase. What the car was actually built in the period pretty much of just after the real 250 GTO was built. Had real Baranis, real Ferrari parts, real Ferrari power, real Ferrari chassis. Just not a real GTO, but real
weird.
enough that nobody would even know. And it's wild to think they built that back in the 70s. So there was a whole story behind the car where the company that built it, I'd have to look it up and get the name of it because now I'm forgetting. But the company that built it, the guy who was in charge of it wound up being murdered, and there's a whole espionage thing. It was a whole crazy thing. It was basically, have you heard of that's that company in South America that does the bolt for bolt recreations of 20s Bentleys? I want to say Purosangue, but it's the new Ferrari thing. What's Persang cars down? Yeah. It's like the Persang. Yes. It's like the Persang of 60s Ferraris from the 70s into the early 80s.
Weird.
Super cool. There was a XK120 Jaguar, and there was a Cobra, a 289 Cobra, a real one, with a single ownership history since 1967. that was on display in there, so that was super cool. All original car except one repaint. There was a recreation of a GT40, and there was one other car, a Scarab race car inside the display. So it was a cool little display of cars inside there, and then a couple of IDRs, Ferrari race cars, on display in there as well. So that was a super neat little event. Bunch of other little car shows we went to. We did Barrett Jackson on Friday. Huge shout out to my my friends over at Barrett Jackson where I used to work that still gave me some tickets because that show is getting very expensive too. Very cool cars on display this year, or for sale, I guess. It's definitely right now, if you're building customs and you want to make some money, build pickup trucks and SUVs. The money is absurd. We've talked ad nauseum on this show about how we're not like big for profit car guys. But if you want to trick some people with too much money out of their money, build a mid-'80s Chevy pickup or an early 70s Ford Bronco, and you will pocket quite a bit of change from your build for sure. Granted, there are some of the builds that obviously are very nice and very well done, and they probably spent well into the six figures to build them, and those certainly demand the six-figure pricing. But what happens when you have a bunch of those is a bunch of the not as nice stuff is elevated to high five, low six figures that shouldn't be. And some people made some serious money this year based on that rising trend of pickup trucks and SUVs for sure. Again, some of them that sold for $250,000 were really nicely done. No question. You know, they have a Roadster Shop chassis, and a bare Roadster Shop chassis now is 25, 30 grand just for the chassis without any suspension or drivetrain or anything. So I can see where the money was spent on some of those trucks. It doesn't make much sense to me to spend six figures on building this hot rod truck with all these modern components just to go park it in the garage, but to each their own, I guess. These things look tremendously capable, like off-road. You know, they're modern suspension with, electronic disconnecting sway bars and, LT5 V8s from supercharged from Cadillacs, like just absurd amounts of tech and stuff stuffed into these vehicles that will never be used in any way, shape, or form near how they could be. But a lot of the lower tier stuff went for way too much money based on that stuff being outside of the realm of the normal buyer. So another trend I noticed this year in general is that it seems like because new car prices are so high, people are more willing to spend more on old cars.
Yeah,
That's
I
the
can see
only
that.
correlation I could think of. It used to be that a $10,000 vintage car was probably your average vintage car, right? Not some numbers matching muscle car, not some crazy sports car, not some big custom build, but your average cruise night special was what, 10 to 20 grand. There was not a ton of cars that were sub 15 to 20 grand at this event, which is both good and bad, right? The good is the more somebody pays for something, the more chances are that car gets saved and survived longer, which is positive. But at the same time, the more money something costs, the less likely you are to be able to afford it yourself, which is unfortunate. So I don't know really how to feel about that, but I feel just like everything, the market fluctuates and has for years. I feel like there was probably somebody who was my age back in 1990 who was steaming mad about a $100,000 Hemi Cuda, right? So I'm sure this conversation is not new, but at the same time, it's a little difficult to seeing cars that you used to be able to buy for 3, 4, 5 grand for 15 to 25, $30,000. So it's a little bit of a tough pill to swallow sometimes. You know, $50,000 third gen Camaros are not a normal thing to me yet, but there we were, standing next to one that sold for like 48 grand. So you hope it's an outlier, but also you're happy to see things be recognized, but also you're not. It's a tough place to be in, being the low end of the car collector community, right? It makes me feel less bad about asking in the $10,000 to $14,000 range for my Mercor, I'll tell you that. Because there's not much you can get that's as clean or as nice or as shiny as that car for that kind of money anywhere else. So it's definitely a changing market, and I don't know that I'm okay with it, but I don't really have a choice because I have no say in the matter. The biggest outlier of any car there, I think I showed you a picture of it, was that little Honda Acti K-Truck.
Yeah.
So what's a K-Truck worth still, Andrew? A 4x4 K-Truck from Japan, $5,000, $6,000?
Here they're going for 8 and 10, I think.
Are they going that high now?
Yeah. For
Well,
a
anyway, this
throwaway
one here
vehicle.
had some eBay wheels on it and a cheap respray, and it sold for $18,000.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that either, but I guess it's not my money, not my car, right? Congratulations to that seller, that's for sure. But I don't know. Who knows? You can't always take the numbers you see at a Barrett Jackson or a Mecum and run with them, but when there are multiples of the same kind of vehicle going for that kind of money over the course of the week,
Yeah.
the Honda Acti notwithstanding, but I'm talking more about like the 80s square body Chevys and the 70s Fords and the Broncos and even International Scouts. If you ever told me I would see an 86 Chevy pickup sell for more than a 69 Chevy Camaro, I'd have told you were crazy. But here we are. So it's a weird world we live in. And then of course, through all of this, there were a few bargains, but they're few and far between. And I always have the glass half empty outlook on the bargains. Like if I wanted that, then there's one more person now that'd be bidding for it, and the person who bought it might have wanted it more and would have paid more, and I wouldn't really get it for bargain anyway. So maybe I'm wrong, but that's just where my brain goes. So yeah, it was a good time. Always is. But we didn't do anything, I don't think, Thursday was the other two. That was Friday. Wednesday, I went to the Pima Space Museum, which is not car related, but I thought my dad really had a kick out of that, and he did.
Down in Tucson.
Yeah, they've added a few things since we've been last.
I mean, it's a huge place to begin with.
Yeah, well, they added a whole building in the middle. I think they were still building it last time we were there.
Did you get to see the Hawaii Mars?
Yeah, I saw the Mars. I sent a picture of it in the chat. You didn't see it?
No, I missed it, I guess.
Yep, I sent a picture of it specifically so you would see it. But they have a new building with a B-29 inside of it. Or B-17, sorry. B-17's the smaller one, right?
B-25 would be the small one.
Nope, it's not that. It's a B-17.
Okay.
Anyway, the B-17 inside the building. And it's one of the last production B-17s. And they have it fully restored inside. And it's super cool. You can walk right up to it. They have ladders to walk up and like look inside the cockpits and look inside the gunner seats, and
they're tiny inside.
Very small inside.
Yeah.
They have the
people were smaller back then.
Yeah, apparently. They have the gun turret at the bottom of the plane, which was pretty interesting because you couldn't get in or out of the gun turret from inside the plane. You had to climb into it from outside the plane. And more than one person was killed when landing gear failed.
Yep.
Because they would just land on them.
Yep.
It's like, okay. It was interesting though because it was one of the last B-17s built, and it never saw combat. It was stationed in England, never saw combat. Came back to the States. It was sold as a firefighting plane and a crop duster for times. And then when it was restored, they were looking for that underplane gun turret. And they put out this like nationwide call, like, "Hey, has anybody seen like a B-17, belly gun turret?" And it was like, okay. And then some random lady in like Kansas had it under her porch. Like, okay.
Yeah. Was it
But it's
was it just polished?
the plane. No, it's painted. I think it was painted.
Sometime at a certain point towards the end of the war, they just were like, once they had air superiority, they're like, we're not painting them anymore. We're not just waste of time to paint them. So just left them polished aluminum, just to save
Yeah,
time and money.
possibly.
Like
Yeah,
the
it is
one,
not painted. You're correct. It has like yellow spots painted, and
Yeah.
it's called it's the B-17G.
yeah, but the overall skin is like polished. I wonder if that's the one that was at the Arizona Commemorative Air Force that's in Phoenix, but that might be a different one. That's one of the last flying ones. There's only like 2 or 3 left that fly.
Okay. Yeah, this is called the I'll Be Around.
Yeah, I don't
That's the
think it's
name of
that
the
one.
plane.
It's a different
It's
one, but
the
yeah.
390th Memorial Museum. It's a separate museum within the museum.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost any more to get in, but it's considered a whole separate, like, nonprofit museum within the middle of the museum. So, super cool setup in there. But
Yeah, they're very, very small inside.
yeah,
'Cause the one,
for a large airplane, there's not much space inside.
no. Yeah, I went inside the one at the Commemorative Air Museum. It was out on the runway. They're like, yeah, go, just go. It was like a weekday. He's like, yeah, go out. You can go outside. You can go inside. The ladders are up there. And I went to
That's
like
cool.
go up from the cockpit, and like my shoulders hit. Need to go sideways to get up in there. But yeah, and then as an aside, like you have Apple TV, the Masters of the Air series is very, very good. It's about I forget the 390th or something bomb wing out of England, but
Well, 390th, that's this one. That's what's on display.
yeah, maybe I'm confusing it because you said that, but it's 300
Yeah.
something like that. But yeah, I mean, those poor guys got just destroyed early on before they had air superiority. But
Well, this particular museum, it has the nose art on the wall from every one that was lost, from every B-17 that was ever built and flown. It has a picture of the nose art and then what happened to the plane. Like, was it lost? Was it, was it scrapped? Was it turned into a civilian aircraft afterwards? And then just the amount of them that were just lost during the war is insane. So the majority of them were, unfortunately.
Yep.
So it's a wild story. It's a super cool presentation that's down there. I mean, the museum's awesome. I mean, if you ever
yeah,
in
that museum's super, super cool.
greater Phoenix area, it's
if you have
worth
any
a couple
interest in
hour
that
drive
stuff,
down to
and you're in
Tucson to
Arizona,
visit it.
It's Tucson, so it's
The
Tucson. It's like
museum
2
is
hours
just
from Phoenix, but
it's an
it's
incredible
worth
museum.
going down there.
So I just
'cause it's
between
massive.
that and the you
And
you
they have
saw
the
the SR-71
we
Blackbird,
talked
just
about it
like
before.
you
They have
walk
a whole
up and
outside
touch
area,
tires. Like,
and I think even they were
that's such a
preparing
huge
that
thing,
747
especially for people who were
flying telescope plane
in
for
the
display. It's
80s
probably on
growing up.
display
That
now,
was
I
like
think.
the coolest thing ever. Like, I know it's from the 60s, but all the toys we had as kids were
Super
all
cool.
Blackbirds, and it's cool to walk up and see one. So anyway, it's a cool place to go. Well worth the drive. So, and the amount of just planes, there's like something like
I've apparently lost
380
track.
airplanes at this
So,
museum. Like, it's wild.
that's pretty much the podcast. I'll let it go from now.
Anyway, let's car week in a
Um,
nutshell. Like I said,
We'll
there were a
talk about
couple other
motorsports next week.
small car
So,
shows here and there we did. Overall, though, it was a good time. It was good to spend some time with my parents, and then some extended
was
time with my
just-
dad doing car stuff.
I was just giving our outro because you cut out for the last like 30 seconds for some reason.
Oh, that's
So,
weird.
Yeah, and then you came back. But
Well,
I was
it's
just calling
anything
it a
important, so
podcast.
don't worry about it. Yeah. Back to the
Yeah.
outro.
Yeah. So yeah. Follow us on Instagram, Off Top Podcasts. I'm Racing Anger on Instagram. Scale Autocast on Instagram. Next week we'll talk about NASCAR season, and we'll get back to that. Everybody's favorite.
Sorry, everybody.
And we'll talk some more about some RC cars we were working on. So,
Sorry further, everybody.
hey, it's what we're into, and we're unapologetic. Although you apologized. Anyway,
Sarcastically.
it's free.
It didn't count.
All right, cool. As always, keep your cars analog and aim for roses.
And if you want my socials, which